Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, we are talking the legacy of Tam Nakano just weeks after her retirement match, her career versus career match with Saya Kamitani at All-Star Grand Queendom 2025. This will be a very different look than just a career retrospective where we start at the very beginning and we go through all the career highlights and biggest moments of Tam Nakano's career. Instead, I want to give it a look from my point of view, from my favorite memories. And in the end of this podcast, I will talk about the legacy of Tam Nakano and the legacy she has left in the world of Joshi and professional wrestling. So I hope you all sit back, relax, and enjoy this however long commentary on the career of Tam Nakano from my point of view, because Tam Nakano is one of one. She is a one of one wrestler. She is someone who, from the very beginning, very clearly was willing to give it all to pro wrestling and do it so in the most authentic way possible. She, maybe more than anyone, embraced the storytelling aspect to a way that few, if any, have ever done. This is a wrestler who has her own phrases for a reason, right? The Tam Road and Tam lore both very much have reigned on through her entire career, and for good reason. Whether it was because of her ability to connect everything within her career to one match, or her ability to somehow connect something that maybe you wouldn't expect to be connected into her matches. The beauty of what Tam Nakano brought to the table was that you always knew that she believed in what she was doing. And she was always going to do her best to bring the best out of that story, that match, and whatever else it may be. I'm always fascinated to talk about Tam Nakano, not only because of her legacy and what she has done over the past number of years, but I'm always interested and excited to talk Tam Nakano because of the fascinating career that she's had. This is a wrestler who went from, I don't want to say forgotten. She was never forgotten, but in many ways, her early years in Stardom, especially, was all about finding a family. And I want to shout out my good friend Trent Brewer, who wrote some incredible articles regarding the Tam Road and Tam's legacy, talking about that. You can check those out on Wrestle In. I'll have a picture at the end to show you where to go. But Tam was someone who was always just searching for more in wrestling, and in the end, it felt like she always found more. And what I'm going to highlight today is what I find to be her greatest moments, again, from my perspective, but also the moments that stand out the most to me when I think of Tam Nakano. Um, because after all, this is on my YouTube channel. Why would I not look at it from my point of view? But I'm going to give the path of really first when she made me notice her, and really all the times since then, whether it be her biggest moments, her most story driven feuds, relationships, whatever it may be. We're going to look at them all, and I'm going to give great appreciation for them because, like I said at the very top of this, there's very few wrestlers who attacked maybe the best word, but attacked pro wrestling head on like she did. And it's why her retirement match, which we are going to talk about, is so one of a kind, is so special, and will be so special for years to come. Because in the end, it was as Tam Nakano as possible. It embodied what the Tam Road has always been. It embodied what Tam Nakano has always been. And ultimately, it's why it was the perfect send off for a wrestler like Tam Nakano. So please join me as we go down her career, her legacy in my favorite moments before we get to the end and we define what that legacy truly is for a wrestler who has left her mark not only on Stardom, not only on Joshi, but the pro wrestling world. So we start here. I think it's best to start at the end when it comes to Tam Nakano because the love and cheerfulness that she showed in her final seconds in this pro wrestling world do really truly embody who she's always been. Whether it was in her early days in Stardom with the Wado tie or her final days with Cosmic Angels. In the end, more often than not, when you saw Tam Nakano, you saw a big smile on her face. You saw someone who was always going to bring her personality, someone who's always going to bring her happiness, and someone who's always going to bring the absolute most to the wrestling ring, even if she was capable of it or not. I think the fascinating thing with Tam Nakano looking back again is how she went from a wrestler who, was rough around the edges, was never perfect, was never the most athletically gifted, but she gave it her all. And that's a wrestler you can connect with so easily, right? That's a wrestler you can connect with because you, as the viewer, can understand someone who gives it their all and does it with a smile on their face and does it with so much care and passion. Because that's who Tam Nakano is. Whether she was the third or fourth or fifth member of Oedo Tai, whether she was second in command and then third in command to Mayu Utani, or she was leading Cosmic Angels. I think the fascinating thing was Tam always pushed forward. Tam always did her best in whatever scenario she was in. My favorite match of hers is the complete embodiment of her truly giving it her all. And I think for many people, showing the world what we learn in the years later, and that she was capable of greatness. She was capable of reaching that level. The first article I ever wrote for Voices of Wrestling, and I haven't wrote there in some time, but Voices of Wrestling, they gave me a platform. I'll forever appreciate it. And the article that got me on Voices of Wrestling was this one. Tam Nakano rise from inconsistent idol to one of the best in the world. When she won the Wonder Star Championship at All Star Dream Cinderella 2021, it was a story that saw her reach what many at the time thought the pinnacle of her career, right? You main event the Nippon Budokan against Julia, you win the hair versus hair match, you win the Wonder Stardom Championship, and you reach a level that, like I said, felt like her pinnacle. Not only because of maybe not knowing if she'd win the World of Stardom Championship, but the pinnacle of this was the belt she was always chasing. This was the belt she always wanted, and the years of story to get there again embodied who Tam was. And I think back to this article and the inspiration to write it. Listen, if you go back and read it, it's probably not all that great, admittedly. Um, but for me, looking back and just remembering how I felt at the time when I wrote this, it was because Tam writes her story literally and figuratively. She writes her story in a way that you remember it. Whether you love it or you hate it, whatever it may be, you remember the story of Tam Nakano. It is a career, it is a story that I don't forget. And when she got to that moment, right? When she got to beating Julia and winning the Wonder Stardom Championship, I vividly remember being like, that was special, right? What a moment. What a way to get there, obviously, through the heartbreak and the ups and downs that she dealt with personally and professionally. What a moment. What a way to get there. And it's crazy to think now, uh, just over 4 years later, how much more she'd go on to accomplish, because you have to know at the time, this was at a time where she pretty often talked about retirement. She pretty often talked about retiring, and right, the Wonder Storm Championship was the moment for her. And to think that since this moment where she won the Wonder Storm Championship, this moment that I think back to that pushed me to write this article, I think to myself, wow. I think to myself, that is a wrestler who not only made herself undeniable, but pushed herself to be even greater than maybe she ever imagined. And that is a wrestler that, again, I can understand why so many connect with her. It's a wrestler that I can understand has the fandom and care that she's had since before this moment, right? Before that moment. But before we get to that moment, I do want to start at my earliest recollection of Tam Nakano because listen, I was not watching Stardom yet when Tam Nakano had joined this company. I was not Stardom yet. I was not watching Stardom yet when she was in Oedo Tai. But the way I watched Stardom was through its history. So even though it had already happened, I learned Stardom by going to the very beginning and catching up in real time. And from the little but great moments that I've seen from her time with the Oedo Tai, it is memorable. The photo you see here, if you, of course, are watching, is from when Tam Nakano officially joined Stardom full time. As you can see in the ring is Hana Kimura, Chris Wolf, and Kagetsu were all very welcoming to Tam Nakano as she joined the company. And I think back to Tam Nakano with Oedo Tai and the love that was there, right? I think so many times when so many times in wrestling you can overlook the wrestlers who may not be the main event or the big future star. And Tam Nakano for a time kind of was that. Right? Obviously, when you look at this photo, you see Kagetsu, who was the main eventer. You see Hana Kimura, who was the future star. You see Chris Wolf, who was so great in her own role. And you see Tam Nakano, who was someone who just fit in and wanted to fit in and be loved and be part of a family. Again, shout out to my guy Trent for really capturing that in his first of 2 articles about Tam Nakano. And I remember my first moments of learning who Tam Nakano was just seeing the little videos like this and, you know, the idea of Tam Nakano just being this. And you have to understand when I'm getting into this, this is someone who is pursuing the world championship or pursuing the Wonder of Stardom championship. This isn't someone who here is this isn't someone here who was in that role and maybe never was going to be. But again, when you keep pushing yourself to be greater, you become undeniable. This is I for those who don't know, P-chan was Tam Nakano's, uh, puppet, the panda puppet, and she was a comedic character in many ways, and she could go out there and do her wrestling, but from what I remember, of course, and from what I've read and what I've seen myself, it's fascinating that she was just their manager when she was hurt and was just being comedic at all times and hilarious at all times, and I know for a lot of people, this version of Tam Nakano is their favorite. There's just something about a wrestler you can connect with that may not have to be chasing the main event, may not have to be chasing the gold, but you can connect with them. You see it everywhere, right? You see it in Joshi wrestling. Whatever wrestling you watch, there is a wrestler like that for many that you connect with. And for many people, dating back to 2017, that was this. That was this connection. And as you head into 2018, the first moment where Tam Nakano truly, for me, just put me onto her and her emotional connection was this match. If you have heard me talk, if you've heard me discuss Stardom in any way, shape, or form, you know my love for this match. The Queen's Quest versus the Weight of Tai Gauntlet match. You had Queen's Quest side of Azumi, Io Shirai, Viper, Hazuki, and Momo Watanabe against the Oedo Tai side of Chris Wolf, Natsu Sumire, Kagetsu, Hana Kimura, and Tam Nakano. And the story to this match was the loser has to leave their faction. And as you can imagine, what an emotional end that will be. And this match is phenomenal. Truly one of the all-time great matches in Stardom history. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. But the emotional connection to this match really does come down to Momo Watanabe and Tam Nakano. It's those two who are fighting for their spot in their faction, who are fighting to keep their faction strong and be a part of their faction being strong. And Tam Nakano, despite her efforts, just cannot beat Momo Watanabe, who at the time was, I think, 17, soon to be 18, as she was preparing to go for the Wonder Storm Championship and so on. It's the first, I think, truly connectable moment to what she'd ultimately become. And as you look at the post match, and Kagetsu shouts out to you, Ashino says, "But I think that you should decide on your new future." And Tam just sits there, emotional, devastated. She didn't want to leave Oedo Tai. She thought she had found her people, her faction, and yet by the end of this match, but despite her best efforts, she was left with nothing. And I look back to this match in great appreciation because it feels like a pivotal point in what Tam Nakano would go on to become. She uses the loss as a catapult to renew herself as a wrestler, to renew herself and push herself to be better in the long future. And that leads us to the next part of Tam Nakano that is so important to me as someone who has followed Tam Nakano and looks at her career. And that, of course, is one of Mayu Iwatani and Tam Nakano. I have talked about this. I made the joke and whatnot, 0-4-3 in her career against Mayu Iwatani. And obviously that is on brand for me as the, Mayu Iwatani super fan over here and whatnot. But the connection between these two is one that only bolsters my love for Joshi wrestling, my love for Stardom, and my appreciation for these two. It was a story that really just starts at this moment where, Mayu says, if you feel lonely, you can bring P Sama with you, and looking back at this moment, and Tam didn't instantly decide to join Stars. She didn't instantly decide to join Mayu Iwatani. Instead, there was a feeling out process because Tam said she needs to figure out who she is and what is the best step for her. And part of that was going into her roots that maybe not everyone knows about. But that was part of her going to team with Io Shirai and doing one of the most insane matches you will ever see in a Stardom ring. The exploding bat death match from Dream Slam in Nagoya, April 1st, 2018. She was teaming with Io to face Kagetsu and Natsu. And within this match, you see a different side of Tam Nakano, a Tam Nakano that I think you see many, many times in the past number of years. A Tam Nakano that is willing to go as far as she can, as crazy as she can to be greater. Tam Nakano is someone who had deathmatch experience before this. She wrestled in FMW. She learned from Onita. Like, that is a fascinating factoid that I wish I knew when I watched this match. Because I was like, "What? This is very off brand." But this match is another step for me watching Tam Nakano and growing appreciation, and the way it served as her winning moment is very, very special. It's very, very special. Here's your crazy explosion for those who wanna know how wild it was. Um, Tam gets the win, and it's just a crazy match. If you've never seen it, go out of your way to see it. But again, it is the signs of where Tam's willing to go, right? Where Tam's willing to bring herself for her own career, for the love of pro wrestling. Exploding that death match is insanity. And yet this is where she was willing to go. Again, on her side was Io Shirai of all wrestlers, and across the ring was Kagetsu and Natsu. And that is great, and that is why I just had to highlight that moment, that match between the gauntlet match and this match. I was sold. I was sold. I was like, this is the one of the most fascinating wrestlers. This is a wrestler who may not be the best in ring, especially at this time, but she's going to give it her all. Again, that is a wrestler you could connect with. You look at the current Joshi world, hell, you just look at Stardom. There are wrestlers out there truly, truly giving it their all every match, right? A lot of them do come from Cosmic Angels, very natural fit, wouldn't you say, right? Aya Sakura, Sayaka Kurara, both giving it their all. Yuna Mizumori, all three of them really giving their all to try and stand out and try to climb the card. There was a lot of connection to Tam for good reason. And when you look back at these moments and the opportunities she was handed, she took them and ran with them. This was back in 2018. And part of that 2018 was, of course, joining Stars, joining Mayu Iwatani and creating that history. That history that would go on for years, that history that would be Tam Nakano's defining point when she leaves Stars is that she wanted to always surpass the icon. She always wanted to surpass Mayu, and that's why she left Stars and formed Cosmic Angels so that she could surpass Mayu Iwatani. And part of surpassing her was indeed beating her. But if you go beyond that and you follow these two through the years, there was so much love there. There was some hatred there. There was some there was many laughs. There was many moments of true enjoyment, whether you like seeing them face off or whether you like seeing them side by side. And one of the most upsetting aspects for me, um, was that we never got to see Tam and Mayu have that final moment on her retirement road. Mayu, I think, had gotten sick. She had to miss the weekend where they'd share the ring one more time, and I think back to that a lot because that will always be the one road left open in Tam's career to me. I feel like she closed out every part of her career except that one. And that one for me in many ways was the one I connected to the most. Here, if you're watching, it is Tam Nakano, Mayu Utani, Arisa Shiki. We'll talk about Arisa Shiki in a second because that is just for me the turning point for Tam Nakano forever and always. It's a friendship, it's a rivalry that defines who she go on to become. But the same goes for this with Mayu Itani. That's why this picture's so perfect. These two dramatically changed who Tam would be as a wrestler and her goals as a wrestler. Mayu Utani, it was about surpassing her. Boy, oh boy, did she give it her best, Tam Nakano. The only thing she didn't do is get to share that last moment, maybe, and finally get that win over her former leader, her former teacher, her former friend, right? But she got the double championships. She won the World of Stardom title twice. She won the Wonder Stardom title twice. Two things that, and she held both of them at the same time. The only one of the only accolades that Mayu Iwatani had held by herself for the longest time, right? This connection between Tam and Mayu is one that every time they revisited it, I was on the edge of my seat. Every time they revisited it, I couldn't wait to see how it unfolds. Every time they'd meet in the 5-star Grand Prix, more often than not, it was my favorite match from round robin action or one of my favorites. I look at the 2023 5-star Grand Prix. Their match is just so incredible. You look at their match in 2024, that was the first time I thought maybe this is when Tam gets her win, and yet Mayu had beat her clean. First time in a few years that had happened. No matter what, whether these two were side by side or across the ring, they always brought the best out of each other. And listen, I don't know what their relationship is now. I don't know if they're friends, if they're foes, but I know that there was always respect there. And there was always some sort of appreciation, no matter how things ended in stars, no matter how things ended between them on the screen, and ultimately how things between mm, ended between them in their careers. There was always a connection there. And through the years, as we saw them get to team up, as we saw them get to face off, it always felt special. This is a rivalry that always felt special. And it's one that I have to bring up because obviously, as again, always talking Mayu Utani, always loving what Mayu Utani's career has become. A big part of that is Tam Nakano and that story and that rivalry. It's one of my favorite parts of Mayu's story. And for Tam Nakano, it's one of my favorite parts as well. Maybe not my number one favorite part for either one, but one of my favorite parts. And this picture, I just love this picture. I really do. I always look at this picture in great appreciation because things have happened. They've both moved on. They've both grown so much, right? One's the leader of Cosmic Angels Strong. One's the leader of Star Strong. At this time, I believe this was during the pandemic, but there's other pictures through the years of them being on the same side and just working seamlessly together. I'm trying to my brain cannot remember exactly what this. It was pretty fresh though. Because as you can see, Mayu still had the Jungle Kiona paint on. So that was 2020 through 2021. But just really emotional. I think it was when they teamed up at well, I like to give dates in case you want to watch the match. it was years ago now, of course, but let me see here. Like I said, this is talking the legacy of Tam Nakano, of course, but it's also, giving a full appreciation of her road and what it ultimately was for so many years. Uh, it was I think it was the mixed tag. Oh, man, 2022 maybe? I can never remember when, uh I can never remember when these 2 or when, Mayu got rid of the Mayu got rid of the paint. That was always a key part of timing. I think this was at the nope, wrong date. My apologies. It might have been Cinderella Journey in Nagaoka, maybe? That might have been it. Either way, whatever it was, you get my point. These 2 always had a great connection. These 2 always had an amazing, amazing connection side by side across the ring, and this is a picture from their final one-on-one match last year, 5-star Grand Prix night 1. Sorry, this was not from that match, but it was part of that story of follow-up, and I always thought with these 2, they'd meet one more time with that IWGP Women's Championship on the line. I always thought that would be it. It wasn't. They didn't meet it ever for the IWGP Women's Championship. It just never came to pass, and it was something that Tam always talked about. Tam always said, "I wanna be IWGP champion. I wanna beat Mayu." She kept true until the end, as Tam always does. That is something I will always give Tam credit for. She never let go of an idea. She never did. And that's kinda where we go into our next journey. But these 2, their singles matches, their last singles match, their last 2 singles matches, the last time they teamed back at Mayu Iwatani's, homecoming show in Yamaguchi when they face Azumi and Momo Watanabe. It's moments I'll never forget. It's moments I'll never forget because they're some of my favorites. It's something about reaching into Mayu's history, reaching into Tam's history, putting it all into one, and it's just really, really special. That kind of brings us a pivot here, um, to Arisa Shiki and Mayu Iwatani. This was sorry, Arisa Shiki and Tam Nakano. This was a career-defining match. The match that I think brought us to the Tam Nakano we all remember. It is my favorite Tam Nakano match. That is the Wonder of Stardom Championship match, Shining Destiny 2019, June 16th. This is stars versus stars, friend, frenemy, whatever you want to call it. It's one of the most well-known and most famous Stardom matches of all time, and rightfully so. It is a bona fide 5-star match. It is whatever you need to redeem a match, it is that. And Tam Tam made this match her legacy in many ways. And I say that because we're talking Tam Nakano's legacy here after all. This match brought us to that moment at All-Star Dream Cinderella in 2021. That's what this match starts the path to, the improbable, unpredictable path, but the path nonetheless. Tam Nakano always promised that no matter what, she was going to be the one to take the Wonder of Stardom championship from Arisa Hoshiki. It was her life's goal in many ways. And this match showed just how close Tam Nakano could truly get to reaching the mountaintop. Because you have to remember, at this time and beforehand, the Wonder of Stardom Championship was really maybe at its highest level in terms of it being the title. She she being Tam was the first challenger for Arisa after she had beaten Momo Watanabe, ending the record-breaking reign to become champion. And this match is as physical, this match is as emotional, this match is as impactful as any. If you were to call it the greatest Wonder of Stardom championship match of all time, I think a lot of people would agree with you. If you were to call it the greatest Stardom match of all time, I think a lot of people would agree with you. I know there's been so many countless matches through the years, but this is one that I consistently see come up, and rightfully so. My love for Arisa Hoshiki is pretty well known, but if you don't know, this is a wrestler who only had, I think, 151 matches off the top of my head, and I've seen the majority of them. I've seen the majority of them. This is a wrestler who 150. My apologies. I added one more. Um, 2 parts of her career when she started her career at the very beginning with Stardom. Her debut opponent on the very first show, Berta Nova, of course, with Mayu Iwatani. They were debut opponents for one another. She, of course, retired from wrestling, left wrestling in 2012, so just a year and a half after, returned to wrestling in 2018, and soon after became Wonder of Stardom champion, and of course, that all leads to here. But this match is the pivotal moment in Tam Nakano's career because not only is it the match that is far and away at this time, I think, her greatest match, but like I said, she had promised no one will take that Wonder of Stardom championship from you, Arisa Hoshiki, except for me. And she never got to do that. Not because she never got, not because she never got to challenge again, which she obviously didn't, but because of course Arisa Hoshiki had to retire due to injury. She retired ultimately, I believe, in May of 2020 to be exact. But her final match came in February of 2020. She never, she never got to have that goodbye with Arisa in the ring. And for us, many of us fans, we never did either, for someone who I think left such an incredible impact with just 150 matches to her name. But this rivalry and this relationship went so far and beyond. When Tam was done, when she was defeated in the end, she said, "I'm not giving up. I'm not stopping until I am the one to take that white belt from you." And of course, for those who don't know, I think the beauty of this is that they'd go on to win Tag League later that year. It felt like the story between these 2 was never ending, and ultimately, things happened that made this story become a bigger story for Tam and so on, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I did want to just say this quote from Arisa after the win. I wanted to understand Tam Chan's feelings, and now I think I can understand her now. I think the definition of Tam Nakano is the best way to ever understand her is through her matches. The best way to fully appreciate Tam Nakano will always, to me, be through her matches. She can do the Tam lore, she can do the long tweets, and I think those are amazing. We'll talk about those later on here. Um, but you'll never get Tam at her full 100% honest her more than the matches themselves. Because at the end of the day, she is a pro wrestler and she gave everything to pro wrestling. Like I said, the Dream Shine duo of Tam Nakano and Risa Shiki is one that is very much remembered, very much loved, very much appreciated. They win the tag league later that year in 2019. They don't win the titles, but it was a duo that was very special. And when I saw fans post that Arisa, who has disappeared from the public eye the last couple years. When I saw Arisa send flowers to Tam, at All-Star Grand Queendom. It it was everything. It was everything because you never, you just like to know when wrestlers are alright, you know? You just like to know when, once they leave wrestling, they're doing okay, and for Arisa, it was really hard for her when she left wrestling in her retirement in 2020, and, she came back a little to do the actoring thing, and then she disappeared again, and just to see that, um, I thank Tam in many ways for just that because it helped myself, it helped many others just to know that, Risa's doing well out there with whatever she's doing, sending the flowers. This was a friendship that, was told in the ring, but was so much more outside of it. And it lasted all the way through, despite, again, Arisa Shiki not being in the public eye. You see those flowers, you see that moment, you get an appreciation for what they are. 5 years later, like, that's the crazy part. We are, like, days away from when Arisa officially retired, and I still can't believe it. Um, but what those 2 created together, whether it was, again, much like Mayu, uh, together or apart across the ring from one another, it was so special. It's something that I think shapes Tam Nakano's career in such a different way because, of course, it all leads us to the rivalry. Um, the defining rivalry for Tam Nakano, the defining rivalry for Julia. To have a fun moment here, here's Tam Nakano telling the world she's the cutest idol wrestler in the universe. But this feud was it came together because of other reasons, right? This feud came together through a lot of change happening in Stardom that was never expected, but these 2 did their best to make the most of it. It it alongside Mayu and Io is the most famous rivalry in Stardom's history. It is the rivalry that defines the Bushiroad era, I think, of Stardom. I don't think that's, a crazy thing to say considering they main evented All-Star Dream Cinderella, which at the time felt like their biggest show ever, obviously, and then, of course, the first All-Star Grand Queendom, which was the biggest show ever up until this year for Stardom. And this rivalry ultimately was Tam's overall pivot from Arisa Shiki, who had to retire, and it was also Julia's pivot after, of course, Hana Kimura unfortunately passed away, and they became each other's eternal rivals, right? They became each other's dance partner in the ring for what ultimately became years. I know some people that love this feud. I know some people that don't like this feud, but ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a feud that made them both bigger, that made them both superstars. It helped Julia reach the mainstream that is now WWE, and for Tam, it brought Tam to the highest level in Stardom. And this is my favorite because she was able to bring, and this is Tam lore, baby. This is Tam lore right here. She was able to bring her thoughts and her feelings she had towards Arisa Shiki because, she didn't want Julia to be the one to take that title after Arisa had to drop it, right? Julia had won the Cinderella. Sure looked like she was going to be the one to beat Arisa Ishiki in her first couple months, and ultimately when these two finally face off for the Wonder Stardom Championship because of Arisa having to relinquish the title and COVID and having to do a tournament and all these things. Tam at the end of that match said, "Maybe today I lost and I don't have the belt, but I'll chase you to the end of the universe to take it from you." Tam Nakano would not be denied. This was going to happen. This was Tam Nakano going all in. And this was, to me, the first time you fully see the Tam Nakano that we've seen now for the past 5 years. It is a Tam Nakano who speaks in absolutes and is a Tam Nakano who speaks in full believability. As I said earlier, there is an authenticity about Tam Nakano that I feel like few truly have in wrestling, because she's always herself. Her matches are always her. Her stories are always her. It's always unique when it's not her. But in many ways, when I watch this feud and when I think back to this feud, I am just often reminded of how crazy it was when we got to its first top level, its first biggest moment, which honestly, honestly, I don't even think was the Nippon Budokan. It was 2021. This is a moment that maybe people don't realize or think about, but it's a moment I do. At the Wrestle Kingdom 15 in the dark match, it was Julia and Shuri versus Mayu Utani and Tam Nakano. And I look at this photo and I see them in the Tokyo Dome in front of thousands of people. And I think to myself, they had been feuding for months at this point. They've had countless singles matches, but what a moment for them to get this chance, right? At the end of the day, they never got to have a big singles or anything in the Tokyo Dome, but they got this moment, they got this chance, they got this opportunity. And this picture is so great. It's so great. Just to see the crowd behind them and see just picture perfect. But ultimately, the biggest moment, of course, in Tam Nakano's career up until 2023 was this one. And this is the moment, like I said, when I wrote that article for Voice of Wrestling, I thought this was the pinnacle for Tam Nakano. I'm sure she maybe thought it was the pinnacle for Tam Nakano. The 10th anniversary show, All Star Dream Cinderella at the Nippon Budokan, over 3,000 in attendance. Again, you have to remember this is also COVID era, so capacity is smaller and all these different things, but this is the biggest, the absolute biggest show. It's the first Stardom show I ever got to watch live. It's the first Stardom show I ever got to watch live. It's the first Stardom show that it's a core memory in my wrestling fandom. And this moment, after Tam Nakano finally wins the gold and she can't push herself to shave the head of her rival after the most insane, most violent match that they could have, right? After, again, they had faced each other, I think, 3 times in the past year before this. This was by far, I thought, the very best of what they had. My favorite match between these two wasn't this one, however. It was the 5-star Grand Prix final, which was perfect. Again, they were always there for their biggest moments, except at the very end, which again, it feels crazy. And that was part of it, right? Julia had always said, "You better be there. You better be ready for me when I come back." And obviously, Tam's career has ended and so on. But the 5-star Grand Prix final of 2022 was Julia's official rise to the world title, right? And it was a 5-star Grand Prix final that completed the incredible, amazing journey that was that 5-star for Julia. That was one of the most well-told stories in a tournament I have ever seen. It was Julia going through her past, her present, and her future, and of course, meeting her greatest rival, Tam Nakano, in the finals. It was a picture perfect ending, and she gets the win. And I just think back to these 2 matches, right? The All-Star Dream Cinderella one where Tam gets her big defining win, and of course this one where Julia gets her big defining win, right? Both of them ultimately, Julia didn't win the world title here, but it was the sign of its coming. And it was always the destinies of these 2. For Tam, the destiny of winning the Wonder of Stardom Championship. For Julia, the destiny of winning the World of Stardom Championship, both becoming realities when they stood across the ring from one another. This 5-star final is one that I'll forever remember. This 5 stars one I'll forever remember. And it's just, again, part of Tam's legacy is this rivalry. And of course, nothing was bigger than when they main evented All-Star Grand Queendom 2023, the biggest show in Stardom history at the time. Tam Nakano once again stepping into the big time main event against Julia. Julia entering as World of Stardom champion. This brings us to the legacy defining aspect of Tam Nakano's career of being the draw. When I talk about her legacy at the end of this, I'm going to talk about how she is the biggest Joshi draw really since All Japan Women. So like you can figure out, maybe there was a draw here and there, but when it comes to the 2 biggest shows that Joshi has done in the past however many years, who was in the main event? It was Tam Nakano. The 3 biggest shows, right? The Nippon Budokan, the All-Star Grand Queendom 2023 and now this year. And I watched back on this match. This match is one I don't remember it as well, I think, as the 5-star final or the All-Star Dream Cinderella one, mostly because of the shock, right? Mostly because of the shock. We talk about, or I've talked about throughout this personal version of looking at her legacy of I never thought she'd reach this moment. I never did. And that moment was winning the World of Stardom Championship. I remember my shock and how stunned I was because you have to remember Julia had been working so long to become World of Stardom champion. That was her story. And obviously, we've seen the reports or whatever. But at the end of the day, Tam Nakano was now the World of Stardom champion. And this was only her first reign as champion. She'd hold it again. But it's just insane to think about that 2 years prior at All-Star Dream Cinderella, I thought she had reached her pinnacles, her peak of her career. She had pretty much, in many ways, expressed that, but as time went on, she started to talk about the World of Stardom Champion, started to talk about the red belt, and then she finally reached that moment here. It would be wrong, though, to talk about Tam Nakano's legacy. I've talked about the big-time rivalries, right? Right? Mayu, Arisa Shiki, Julia, 3 rivalries that define Tam's career. But maybe nothing is more associated with Tam Nakano than the Cosmic Angels. The Cosmic Angels and the creation of this group was the sign of Tam going to that next level, right? They became the most popular faction in Stardom. They still are. Like they started forming at the end of 2020 when it was just Tam and Mina, and then Unagi Sayaka joined, and they quickly became the most popular faction. They had the record-breaking Honors of Stardom title reign that got broken after that, but it was record-breaking then. Kozen Cosmic Angels every year in the Tokyo Sports, or was it Shoot Pro? One of the two. When you see the votes come in for favorite faction, it's Lij, it's Cosmic Angels in all of Japan. Like that is it. It's those two, and they have gotten number one before. Cosmic Angels became so big, so massive, so major in Joshi, in Stardom, in Japanese wrestling. And of course, at the head of that was Tam Nakano. And through its iterations of the OG3, right, that we got to see have this incredible send off in Tam's hometown earlier this year. or the addition of colors, which maybe not a lot of people remember, and Waka Tsukiyama and Mai Sakurai as well. Mai Sakurai wasn't there for a long time, but she was in it as well. But you had colors joining Saki, Yuko Sakurai, Rina Amikara, Hikaru Shimizu, joining them, and then of course, as many remember, when Natsupoi joins the group, it feels like you just somehow you took Cosmic Angels and you made them even more popular. Because what Tam and Natsupoi became, of course, was Meltier, as we know. And that is a story that obviously goes through the cage match and then the singles match at Cork, and after that, then the DDM versus Cosmic Angels elimination match where Natsupoi turns her back on Julia and DDM to finally join Tam. And I feel like that is where you watch Cosmic Angels somehow just go even higher than ever imagined back in 2022. Meltier is a bright spot for me when it comes to Tam Nakano's career because I thought Meltier was great. They have the album, right? They have the EP. Is that what it's called? They have all these different things. They had the music, they had the tag run, they had the incredible entrances, they had everything. And again, I kind of get sad because I think to Tam's retirement road, and it felt like we never got one more signature Tam Natsupoi moment. Meltier was lovely. Like they were such a fun duo. Every time they teamed up, you knew you were not only going to get a great match, but you were going to remember it. And I think for Meltier and I think for Natsupoi joining Tam, it altered her career. It did. It did. I know a lot of people loved her in DDM and people always play about, she was a traitor and all these things. But it changed her career. It set her on the path of the Wonder Stardom Championship. And it's a duo that again will be remembered in Stardom history. And then of course was the last iteration, as I like to call the work rate angels, which of course was mostly led by Tam Poi Seriano, and then joined by young Kozen, Sayaka Kurara, and Aya Sakura, as well as Yuna Mizumori. I remember when Yuna Mizumori was joining the group, and I was like, that's a weird one. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it did. Like, there's something about Yuna Mizumori in the Cosmic Angels faction that just works. Not only is she great, like Yuna Mizumori is a hell of a worker, right? But it just ended up working. And you look at these six and what they'd create together. Specifically the trio, of course. I think overlooking the trio that was Tam, Poi, and Sayori would be wrong because so many times, especially in their first year or two, they just every time they were teamed up, it was something great. Like whether it was house show, pay per view, Cork, and whatever it was, there was always something to look forward to. And now, when they added the rookies, when they added Aya and Sayaka, you were seeing for the first time within Cosmic Angels the future be built up. Right? We had not really seen that otherwise because, of course, you had Unagi and Mina. They were still new, and they obviously ended up going on to have great futures. Unagi is one of the most popular freelancers in the scene. Mina going to AEW in America and becoming super popular. Of course, that credits to Tam as well. Um, but you hadn't had that young rookie duo, right, join this group, and that was the unique part of really this last year and a half or so, was seeing that within Cosmic Angels and seeing Tam take to leading a younger generation. Obviously, Sayaka Kurara is someone she greatly connected with, was someone that she greatly loved, right? And that is someone who is now being pushed because I think of Tam's belief in her. But I think that's the fascinating thing about Cosmic Angels is there really were eras to this. It was the era, Waka and Mai Sakurai at the time were rookies, but again, these were rookies who debuted in Stardom. This was the first time Tam had the chance to lead such a group. And I think now, as Cosmic Angel sits without Tam Nakano, you look at those five and you have trust in them. You have trust in them to lead forward because there's a bit of Tam in all of them in many ways. But this all brings us, of course, to uh, the Cosmic Angels moment, one of the biggest moments in Cosmic Angels history, which was when Tam Nakano defeated Mina Shirakawa to win the Wonder Stardom Championship for a second time and become the second ever double champion. This was something that I think if you told the world when Mayu Utani became the first ever double champion, right? If you told the world a few years later, so say when Tam say when Tam joined Stars, it's 2018. Say when Tam joined Stars. If you told the world that Tam would be number 2 to do that, I don't think anyone would have believed you. But she did it. She got that moment. She got that history making moment. And I think there's a serious debate on how that really, really hurt Mina more than anything. But listen, this is about talking about Tam's legacy defining moments for me, myself, and from what I remember, and just seeing her win the double titles. It's something you can never take away from her. It's an accolade that only her and, like I said, her former leader, friend, whatever it may be, my youth, it's what they share. It's what they share, no one else in Stardom's history. And I think that's very important to bring up. But talking about Cosmic Angels, talked about Arisa Oshiki, talked about Julia, talked about Mayu. I've talked about the early Oedo tie days, the gauntlet, all these different things, all these different matches. But there is nothing to me that defines or will embody Tam Nakano's career better than what she created in her final not in her final year, yes, but really in her entire career as a main event wrestler. And that, of course, is Saya Kamitani. Saya Kamitani said, obviously, she is a pro wrestler because of Tam Nakano. And I think you can go so much further than that. It's so much more than that. Saya Kamitani is the superstar she is today because of Tam Nakano. We are in a era of Stardom where Saya Kamitani, a rookie who a lot of people had fears about, a lot of people, you know, they didn't know what she was going to become. I'll never forget it. At that same All Star Dream Cinderella show where Tam Nakano won the Wonder Stardom Championship, Saya Kamitani stepped into the World of Stardom Championship match, and I remember the reactions online of, "Are we sure about this? Can she handle this? Can she do this?" And that lasted the entire year when it came to Saya Kamitani. And every time she stepped into the big match, she delivered. World of Stardom Championship match against Utami Hayashishita at that same show, and then, of course, Saya Kamitani would go on to win the Cinderella tournament. And I like this picture, one, because both Saya and Tam have shared it, so obviously it's very meaningful to them. But their connection that goes back to the Idol, um, what's it called? The Stardom Idols, duh. The relationship that goes back to that and how Saya has gone from being part of that to this, it's it's not all because of Tam, because I don't wanna take any piece of hard work that Saya Kamitani has put in, right? Saya Kamitani has made every regime of Stardom's history believe in her, okay? But the greatest thing Tam's has ever given is the success of Saya. She put everything aside to always put this woman over, and it started at not All Star, Stardom Dream Queendom 2021 in their second match for the Wonder of Stardom Championship, the first reign of Tam Nakano Wonder of Stardom world life ended at the hands of Saya Kamitani. And again, I've been saying it throughout this episode. At the time, I thought the Wonder of Stardom title and winning that moment and having that reign, that was the peak for Tam. I had thought that for so long, and seeing her give this to Saya Kamitani, the new up and coming superstar, who would then go on to have the record breaking reign, it made Saya, right? This made Saya. This rivalry, the match that they had Stardom World Climax, it made Saya, and the reign would go on to make Saya too. So it makes it all the more insane that somehow, some way, it was about making Saya Kamitani once again in her final months as a professional wrestler. At Stardom Dream Queendom 2024, 3 years after she had put the belt, the Wonder of Stardom belt, the white belt around the waist of Saya Kamitani. She did it once again, but this time as Saya Kamitani took over as the brand new top heel of Joshi, the top new heel in many ways of professional wrestling. And at the time, I am going to be 100% honest on this. I was still not sold. I listen, I know how wrong I am now, but I was not sold on heel Saya. I loved babyface Saya. I've been a Saya fan since 2021. But they saw vision, they saw something, and no one, I think, bought in more outside of Saya Kamitani than Tam Nakano. They said they were going to make this the biggest thing. And as we sit here now, boy, oh boy, did they nail that one. Boy, oh boy, did they nail that one. Tam Nakano has given everything to Saya Kamitani. Everything. Everything. And she looks more and more right by the day. Um, she gave her two biggest wins of her career, but that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. And she told the story in the lead up to her final match. Yeah, we had to have one Tam Lore tweet thread, right? Like, it would have been wrong if we didn't have a Tam Lore tweet thread here as I talk about her legacy. But I think out of all the Tam threads that she's done, and she's had many, the Tam Lore lives on forever. None hit more than this one because, like Saya Kamitani said, like Tam said, this truly, truly dates back. There is a true, easy road to follow for two wrestlers who never shared the same faction, who were never true partners. There was an easy road to follow. And as I look at this thread and I just think to the final road of Tam and how, yes, some of it was about her, but so much of it was about Kamitani. And I have to give her all the credit in the world for that. As I watched Tam Nakano shoulders stay on the mat for the 3 count at All-Star Grand Queendom 2025, I was already an emotional wreck, obviously, watching the final match of my Utani Stardom career with Shuri, but there was something about the way Tam's run ended and the way the match so perfectly, I thought, showcased Tam's career. It had all the little Tam moments that you'd want, right? The running down the ramp and hitting the violet chute, the wrestling on the outside, the apron spot, uh, the big time near falls in the end. She had her match formula, and her match formula sometimes was one of the best formulas, and sometimes I was like, oh my god, the wrestler you're wrestling doesn't work in this formula. Like those were the that was the but in many ways that was my appreciation for Tam. Is like I was not always in agreement with every match and story that she told, but she always believed so much in that story, in that match. I had to respect it. But nothing more completed, nothing more perfectly told the career of Tam in one match than her final. You can go back and watch her and Saya Kamitani wrestle. You can go back and watch them have so many incredible matches through the years. I don't know if I thought they'd reach this level. Fundamentally speaking, it's phenomenal. Artistically speaking, it's phenomenal. Story-wise, it's phenomenal. It's just everything. It is Tam's final gift to the pro wrestling world. It is Tam's final gift to Joshi. It is Tam's final gift to Stardom. And it's Tam's final gift to Saya Kamitani. On Stardom's biggest stage ever, they had Tam Nakano retire in the main event. And it solidified a legacy that will never, ever be forgotten. This whole ramble, this whole hour was for me to celebrate my favorite moments from Tam's career and rivalries and so on. But it was all to get here at the end of the day, all to get to Tam Nakano and Saya Kamitani, because when that match ended, I wholeheartedly said the greatest thing Tam Nakano has ever given wrestling was Saya Kamitani. And I rewatched the match before this to get a second bit of appreciation beforehand. And I was so much more emotional now than I was when it happened, because I think when it happened, it was one of those, I know this is coming. But now that it's happened and time has gone on and you let it marinate, you let it sink in that Tam's done, and you watch those final moments and you see it on her face and you see it on Saya's face more than anything, you feel that. You feel it a little bit more. And I recommend anyone, whether you love Tam Nakano and Saya Kamitani, you don't like, I don't give a shit. Go rewatch it. There's just a the second level appreciation for it that you get when you have full knowledge that it is indeed the end. And the post match, the mid match, Tam Nakano captured Joshi wrestling very well. Storytelling is what makes Joshi better than anything. Storytelling in the ring is what makes Joshi wrestling better than anything, because it also comes with just such unbelievable physicality that no other genre of this great art style, whatever you want to call it, can capture. And boy, oh boy, did these two leave it all in the ring. And when you watch that walk up to the stage and you watch that finale, it was a series finale. That's what this was. If you've watched all-time great TV shows with all-time great endings, um, Breaking Bad is always a great one, you know? I don't wanna spoil for anyone, but, the way that ends and the finality to that, and the way this ends and the finality to Tam's career. Tam kept her promises. I'll give her that. She was gonna chase Julia to the end of the galaxy to take that Wonder of Stardom championship. She did that. She was gonna do her best to reach or try and surpass Mayu Iwatani. Maybe that one didn't fully come true, but in many ways it did in terms of reaching her level and being on her level. I think that alone is an accomplishment. And she promised if she lose this match, if she lost the career versus career match, she'd disappear into darkness. She would go away and be gone. And like that, in the movie, in the story tail ending, as she pointed to the sky, a dream shine reference, mind you, to bring back Torunarisa Shiki as she pointed to the sky with the feathers of the Phoenix Queen falling, she disappeared into darkness. It was the most Tam Nakano final moments you could ever imagine, and somehow so much more than that. It's an all-time moment in professional wrestling history. It's an all-time ending to a career in professional wrestling history. Arguably one of the greatest, maybe the greatest. You can have that debate with whoever you want. But as I sit here and I again get full appreciation for Tam and her legacy, I don't think there's a more perfect ending for a wrestler than Tam Nakano's ending for her career. She didn't need the ceremony, she didn't need all that. She just needed to fade into darkness, pointing at the sky in that pure happiness that I talked about at the very beginning of this show. There was always a smile on her face. There was always care for what she did. And that care was shown, that happiness was shown until her very final moments. That's the beauty, that's the legacy of Tam Nakano. I want to shout out my friend Trent for his 2 articles, A Tale of Tam. You can check those out over on Wrestle In. You can type in A Tale of Tam or really anything about Tam Nakano. I think it pops up somewhere or another. So definitely check that out. But like I said, let's talk legacy of Tam. Legacy is quite easy for me. When you look at the Mount Rushmore of Stardom, it's Mayu Iwatani, it's Io Shirai, it's Tam Nakano. Those 3 are not up for debate anymore. Tam Nakano is one of Stardom's greatest stars. Tam Nakano is the greatest draw in Stardom history. Tam Nakano is the best Joshi draw in the past 20 years. That's her legacy when it comes to Stardom. That's her legacy when it comes to Joshi. That's her legacy when it comes to pro wrestling. When you get to those Observer Award or sorry, the Observer Hall of Fame, these 3 should all be shoo-ins for what they contributed to the rise and ref- the rise or the return to greatness that Joshi Wrestling has experienced over the past decade. These 3 all have their own claims, all very different claims, but claims nonetheless. If if you're going to appreciate women's wrestling, if you're going to appreciate Joshi wrestling, you have to have appreciation for all 3 of these wrestlers. This is your Stardom Mount Rushmore. You can add whoever you want fourth. I think that's perfectly up to debate. I know Kyrie will be said. You get Kawa, obviously the beginning of Stardom, the first ace, truly. Uh, Kagetsu will be brought up. I think Shuri's gonna have a great claim when she's all done. You get my point. There is a complete debate for the 4th spot. There's no longer any debate for the top 3. It's these 3. And that is truly incredible when you go back to Tam Nakano's first 2 years in Stardom, to think this is where she ended up, to think this is where she landed. It's because of who she was as a wrestler, the believer that she was as a wrestler, the believer that she was as a person. It's someone that she inspires a lot of people. I've seen it in real time. I have friends that absolutely adore Tam Nakano and adore everything she's brought to the pro wrestling ring. And rightfully so, because if she's a favorite of yours, it's someone that you can look at and inspire yourself, be inspired to be greater because of what her journey was to the top of the pro wrestling world, of the Joshi world, of the Stardom world. She is Stardom's Twilight dream. She is in every which way the most I d it there's so much connection between her and Mayu in terms of not being the chosen one, but becoming the undeniable ones. Io was the chosen one. I think that's something I wanna point out here. When you look at these top 3 of the Mount Rushmore, Io was the, most athletically gifted, unbelievable wrestler I've ever seen. Like, that made all the sense in the world. Tam and Mayu, there's a reason that this connection's so special to me and others is because in many ways, Mayu gave a blueprint of you work your ass off, you keep going, you keep pushing, and you're gonna become undeniable. And Tam did it in her own fashion. There was a blueprint and she did it in her own fashion. She got there. She reached the mountaintop. That's what makes the Stardom, Mount Rushmore, the top 3, the big 3, whatever you wanna call it, so incredible. Tam Nakano is a true superstar of the sport. Tam Nakano is a true superstar of professional wrestling. She is someone that, if you have followed her story, if you've followed the Tam road, you have been left with nothing but feeling every emotion, whether it be anger, sadness, happiness. She made sure you felt one of them. I think that's something, the final thing I just want to say here. Whether you hated Tam Nakano, you loved Tam Nakano, or neutral on Tam Nakano, she always made you feel. And if she can make you feel, if she can make you feel emotion, whatever emotion that may be, she is doing her job to perfection. I did this video with simple planning of I want to talk about these points. Whatever I say, that is ultimately the point of this YouTube channel. I'm just gonna kind of wing it. We'll see where we go. Um, in many ways, it feels like as I sit here and I've talked for over an hour about Tam Nakano, I am grateful for what she's done for my fandom of Joshi wrestling, for my fandom of Stardom. Um, I will sit here and also admit, boy, oh boy, she made sure to get under my skin once in a while, and I appreciate that as well. But there was nothing more true than when it was over that I was going to miss the hell out of Tam Nakano in the pro wrestling world because there's no one like her. There's no one like these 3, but there's no one like Tam. And I think if anyone joins wrestling, they can learn a lot from Tam and how she carved her path, carved her road. You can't replicate it, but you can be different and it can go a very long way. I want to end with this photo because I think it's the perfect photo of Tam at the end of the day. Pure, pure happiness. Um, Tam Nakano will be remembered for years to come She is a legend, a true legend. She's an all-time great. She is a Hall of Famer. She is one of Joshi's truly, truly top tier wrestlers because of everything she accomplished. And she left Joshi better than when she came in. That is the best I could say for Tam Nakano's legacy. That's the best I can say as just someone who has watched her career and enjoyed and appreciated her matches. She, in every which way, was 100% her from start to finish. And that was the Tam Nakano way. That was the Tam road. And that was Tam Nakano's legacy. A personal look at Stardom's Twilight dream. I want to thank everyone for listening here today to this unorganized but maybe fun chaos that was talking Tam's legacy from my point of view, talking my favorite stuff from her career. I do want to end with this before I say thank you. Is my top 5 favorite matches from Tam Nakano's career. And by the way, this is the highest rated match on Cage Match in Stardom's history. Just want to say that. My 5 favorite matches of Tam Nakano's career are, by the way, her top 10, 4 of them Saya Kamitani matches. That's pretty crazy. I didn't even talk about the loser leaves match and what that did, but I digress. My 5 favorite Tam Nakano matches in no order, but my 5 favorite Tam Nakano matches. You kind of got a glimpse of a lot of them here. But the first to name is that gauntlet match. I do think that she is such an incredible part of why that gauntlet match is so amazing. And I would be wrong not to say it. The next match that I absolutely love from the career of Tam Nakano is the Arito Shiki match, which I still is my favorite Tam Nakano match of all time. I will say that. While this is in no order, that is still my favorite. The next would be the 5-star Grand Prix finals match with Julia from the 2022 5-star Grand Prix. It would then be her match with Mayu Iwatani from the 5-star Grand Prix in 2023. That is a match I will carry on for many, many years. It was a time limit draw. There's matches I've rated higher than that, but from Tam, but it's just one I remember so wonderfully, and it was in Cork, and it was just special. And of course, the final with being Saya Kamitani versus Tam Nakano, her retirement match, without a doubt, without a doubt. So thank you everyone, and I want to thank you real quick. This is the first video I've done since reaching 500 subscribers, and I just can't thank you enough because I don't always fully believe in myself, but I just kind of turn on the microphone and do it anyways. As you can probably tell throughout this video, nothing I do is necessarily rehearsed or written down. I just kind of go at it and we'll see what happens. That's kind of how I attack content creating. It's not like many others. Like I'll do my 5-star with my ideas and whatnot. But when I do some of these things, I just want to give natural overall reaction. And the fact that so many of you have um, subscribed to that means the world to me. I was always scared of going all in on a YouTube channel that was just a course devoted to Joshi, not because I didn't believe in Joshi wrestling. I didn't believe in myself. So seeing that number and seeing that growth and seeing where we've reached, I can't thank you enough for the support, whether you've been here since day one, whether maybe it was that Voice of Wrestling article that I showed at the beginning, or whether it was from this YouTube channel earlier this year, you found it, maybe you just found it through the past couple weeks, whatever it may be, that your support means the world to me. And I feel like this is a fitting video to celebrate that, because we're celebrating a career, we're celebrating a legacy of someone who always believed in themselves, that of course being Tam Nakano, and reached heights that maybe at one time they didn't expect, but undeniably earned through determination, through pushing themselves, and I think that's always special. So thank you everyone for the support. I will just send you along to, you know, some of the content from the past couple of weeks. If you haven't checked it out, maybe this is the first time you are, um, maybe this is the first time you're seeing one of the videos. You know, you saw it was Tam and you wanted to dive in, see what someone had to say about her legacy, and thank you for that. Like I said, this wasn't perfect, but I will push you to other content I've made over the past week. Mayu Iwatani, I celebrated her iconic week that started at the All-Star Grand Queendom show, where she had a 5-star match with Shuri, and it ended in Marigold with her 5-star emotional match with Nanai Takahashi. Go check that out, please. If you haven't, also check out the every Friday, the 5-star Joshi show drops right here on the YouTube channel, as well as everywhere you get your podcast into the Fight Game Media Network. So check all those out. If you haven't, if you're new here, or if you just haven't given a chance to listen, please do that. But thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for the support. Thank you to the 500 plus subscribers that have subscribed to this YouTube channel. If I hit 1K, that'll be amazing. If I stop here, that's cool too with me. I just greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for believing in me, supporting me. It pushes me to continue making content like this. And just thank you. So that's it. That's Tam Nakano's legacy. That's it for me. Until next time, everyone. So long. See you later. Bye bye.